Hi guys, and thanks very much for checking out another episode of Kettlebell Sport Talk. This week I was joined by a fantastic guest, somebody that I've known for many years now, in Gregor Sobocan. So Gregor is a lifter from Slovenia who's been involved with kettlebells for ridiculous amount of years, went through loads of different training systems, loads of different styles, really developed, made sure that he's learned from different people and continue to develop himself as a coach, so he can get the best out of himself and his athletes. So in this episode, we really dug deep into competition experience, so learning some lessons from Gregor and what were the key turning points for him, because Gregor's somebody who was a fantastic lifter, but sometimes could be the master of his own downfall mentally in terms of putting too much pressure on himself, something that I know all too well. So it was really good just to pick his brains on that, but also how he trains his athletes and how he just uses a conjugate method in terms of keeping his athletes at a base level of fitness all year round. And then when we get closer to a competition, then he'll start doing a bit of a peaking phase, as he calls it. So it was really good to dig deep on those. A really fun chat. I took a lot from it, as I always do from these chats, and it was really just good to just shoot the breeze and chat kettlebells, because it was just real fun. And yeah, didn't really want it to end, you know. So and I'm sure we'll get him back, but hopefully you like it, guys. As always, make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you don't miss an episode of these talks. So every time an episode gets released weekly, you'll get a notification that'll come straight to your inbox, and you can watch it there and then. Also, check us out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and all of the other different providers that you've got. You'll be able to listen to this in audio format as well. Like I say, any questions, drop them below. More than happy to help. If you've got any recommendations or anybody you want to learn from in terms of anybody that you could think would help you in your kettlebell sport journey, let us know, reach out. We can see if we can try and set that up as a guest. Keep sharing the love, guys. Keep sharing the links. Keep sharing the videos. It's much appreciated. It helps us grow bigger. The bigger we get, the more guests we can get, the bigger the reach, the more kettlebell lifters we're helping as well. So, and that is the main goal of this. So hope you enjoy this episode with Gregor. I know I did. I took a lot from it. So until next time, take care and enjoy the episode. Hi guys, thanks very much for checking out another episode of Kettlebell Sport Talk. I am joined today by an absolute fantastic lifter, a great coach, a man who helped me massively in the beginning as well. Got down to his workshop when he came over to the UK in Leeds a good few years ago now, but followed his work ever since, and every time we hook up at competitions, it's always good to chat. So today I am joined by the one and only Gregor Sobocan. How's things, man? How's life treating you?
Hello. Nice introduction. Thank you very much. I'm fine. Kind of taking a little bit break from kettlebells, from a sport actually, not from kettlebells. So
yeah,
you caught me probably in the right time where my mind is a little more open than it used to be.
No, that's good, mate. I've seen it when you're in the zone and there's not much happens there, is it? You know.
Yeah.
So obviously, you've been involved with kettlebells for. Well, we don't want to show your true age, do we? Do you know what I mean? But
it's been 15 years. It's been 15 years.
Yeah. So did you want to just like chat? Like, how did you get started in the full kettlebell sort of journey? What sort of attracted you to them, and where did it all start for yourself?
Well, I used to be a handball player, the European style. You know, you play on a court. So I kind of knew how far I can come. I was not really in the best shape at the time. We had a strength and conditioning coach, but I saw an opportunity in kettlebells. Those were introduced to me through a hard style stuff. It kind of promoted explosive strength and stuff like this, the resilience, power. So I went to a seminar in the United States, And it was good. It was a great experience. It did help to my kettlebell performance, to my handball performance. But as soon as I started to lift kettlebells, I learned about the Master of Sports title. So I said, okay, in handball, I cannot do it, but there is a chance with kettlebells. I'm going to take it. So my journey kind of in 2007, it was with Valery Fedorenko on his camp in Greece. So this is my first kind of approach to kettlebell sport through him.
Nice, man. And kind of when you first got introduced to it, what was the biggest attracting thing to you? What was kind of like made you think, do you know, I love this. I'm going to try and push it as far as I can go. What got you hooked on the kettlebell drug, as we say?
Well, it's because in training handball, we did lots of Olympic lifts, cleans and jerks, but I was never really on the explosive side. I was, but not to be the best. But I had lots of endurance from handball. So if you put this together, you have Olympic lifts and you have to be in good shape. So it was perfect for me. Plus the external motivation from the title Master of Sports, just I got hooked. So for 3 years, it took me to get to the title.
Nice, man, nice. And obviously over your time now and running the successful club over in Slovenia and producing many of athletes, what's kind of the change from that very first workshop that you did with Valery back in 2007? What's kind of been your change in your approach? Because obviously you've seen many different things, tried in many different things. How's that journey looked for you?
Well, for me, it was I was always exploring things because there was not much known about it, kettlebells at that time. So it was Valery's one true way. And then there was a few other schools. So when I hit the plateau with Valery, I tried a few different methods. The way I did it with Valery was for almost 2 years, the same protocol, and I kind of got fed up with it. But I still use it with my athletes. It's not that I don't use it anymore, but it's like in a block. So we do like 6 weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks of his approach, and then I change to something else I learned during the way from Ivan Denisov, from Anton Anasenko, from Sergei Rachinsky. So I just try to use, if I do the block periodization for 4 weeks, and then I change the approach just to keep the mind fresh.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And do you find that that's just a good way of making sure that your athletes don't stay stale? And do you find it, just from your experience, have you found that that's been useful for your athletes and being able to manage them?
Well, I try every athlete. I go through a certain protocol. Like for 4 weeks, they stay on Valery's program, and then I change. And when we use I have 4 different principles. So when we do a round, then I talk to them, which one was the best for them. I can see where they progressed the most. Maybe we do another round of the same protocol, because when you start, everything works. It just matters how long it works. So, and I'm also lately learning a lot of personality type training. So if there is someone who is very structural, he can follow a plan for a very long time. If somebody who is more a little bit of an adrenaline freak or a little bit dopamine dependent, you need to change them the program, or a little bit more variety or motivation when they need to hit a record almost every training. So if I train like a general group where there's more athletes, like 10 people, then I use the conjugate method, because in the one microcycle of 6 trainings, you offer them everything. So it's the variety, it's personal records, it's everything. And in general, I find this approach the best, but I would not say that you can make an absolute world champion on this approach. It's too general. It's too general.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, then like conjugate, you're using that just to build all physical qualities and get everybody a good base level. And then if somebody said, Gregor, I've got world championships in November or a specific competition, or actually I want to take this further, then you'd start going into a bit more of a specific approach.
Yeah, exactly. I try to have people on the conjugate as long as possible, because we do lots of different movements. We add swings in between cleans. We do cleans and then jerks in the same training. Just lots of variety, so that you don't get stiff in some points. You work on your weak points. But like you said, if someone asks for a competition, if he or she is an experienced athlete, then 4 weeks for me is enough to get him or her ready. But if there is someone who has never entered the competition before, then I usually suggest that we do it 10 weeks before competition. So we start with the exact protocol, because he has to get his body, his mind, how it works, how he adapts for the same protocol. But with more experienced lifters, let's say for myself, I would only do 3 weeks of training and 1 week of rest, so that I could perform well on competition.
Ah, that's cool. So, and would that be the same approach you'd use with, because I know you've got like a lot of online student in terms of the EGSA stuff and obviously guys in your club. Do you sort of try and change the approach slightly for guys who are online compared to in the club, because you could be a bit more reactive, or how do you sort of tackle that?
Well, online, I talk to my clients once a week, or maybe even more. If they need more, then it's two times a week. They can text me. I actually ask what they need. If they only need some idea for training, I try to have them on conjugate as long as possible. Because you can progress and you stay fresh. But if someone says, okay, let's say a guy from Czech Republic is going on competition in Serbia this weekend, and we use the approach preparing for competition, the picking approach. And when he will finish, I don't know, if you go to the European Championship, which is in, I think, 11 weeks, we will do a few weeks off, and then we will start like 6 weeks or 7 weeks of preparing for the European Championship. Ah,
nice, man, nice. And that peaking phase, I'm going to have so many questions for you, Gregor. You're going to be sick of me by the end of this call. that peaking phase, how much does that change compared to the conjugate method? Because obviously, what sort of, obviously, if it's an experienced athlete, you're sort of saying, right, 4 weeks, that's enough. What's the main difference from just that conjugate method right the way throughout compared to that peaking phase? What's the biggest changes there?
I look at the conjugate system as like general physical preparation. Of course, using kettlebells, staying in touch with kettlebells, doing all the techniques. You can do the cleans and long cycle and snatches and everything within one microcycle, which consists of six trainings. I don't care if somebody is a little bit tired or maybe not really overtrained, but there's a big volume here because we change from energy systems and the nervous system. So I try to change the protocol. So one day you really fire up the muscles, the other day you fire different muscles, and then the nervous system, and then metabolic demands. So generally you're kind of tired when you're doing this. And we all know if you want to perform well, then you need to be rested. So the main difference between general, like conjugate preparation, and peaking for competition, I just say for competition, we know we're going to go for 10 minutes. We know the exercise, we know the weight, and we kind of know the pace. So we do everything in that manner. We want to do as many as possible on competition.
Right.
And, 10 days before competition, I have less training, which kind of serves as a test. And then up to competition, we only do short tests, short trainings, like activation, some potentiation of nervous system, and that's about it. We want to be as fresh as possible, which in conjugate, it's not really important.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And what's been the biggest lesson that you've learned from that? Because obviously, I speak from my personal experience. I know that I've overcooked or undercooked myself, and I speak to many coaches, and they say that peaking phase is much more of can sometimes be an art more than a science, because everybody is weird and wonderful in their own little ways and stuff. Kind of what's been the biggest lessons you've learned over the years of competition in terms of, wow, I overcooked myself, or actually I didn't do enough? What was that fine point for yourself?
That's a really nice question. I use approach that we learned from Dmitry Klokov also, and also Anton Anasenko told me, but it's about the emotions. And if you work in training and you're pushing yourself to high results and you're expecting too much of yourself, then you burn emotions out. And the biggest click in my head was when I think it was Klokov or Koklyaev who said, well, everybody knows if you get tired, like burn out from muscle soreness, you need 4 or 5 days to come back. If you tear a muscle, you need like 6 weeks. If you break a bone, you need 4 weeks. If you tear a tendon, you need like 6 months. But what if you break your mind?
Yeah.
And that question was like, wow. Nobody ever talked about this. And lots of athletes, they broke their mind in training and they couldn't ever come back. Because, if you tear a muscle, you go to a doctor. If you break a bone, you get a cast. If you, I don't know, something, you have the recovery drinks. But if you break your mind, there's no doctor, or at least athletes are kind of, I'm not going to go to psychologists. I mean, I'm tough, I'm hard.
Yeah.
But then I did a course with psychologists. It was really relaxing, and I really learned how to save my emotions. So in training, if I failed at training, there was no big deal. I knew there's another training coming. Maybe I was not fresh enough. Maybe the kids were sick or something.
Yeah.
But it was really, really important that I learned how to save the emotions and gather everything for the competitions. And then it was really easy to perform.
So, and if you don't mind me asking, what's the kind of technique that you use for that then? How have you found to manage your emotions in that way?
Well, some people said that you have to kind of visualize, but for me, that was burning out. For me, visualizing was burning out. Can't imagine what could go wrong. No, really, it was. I couldn't. It was not the best idea. It was just for as long as possible, stay away from the competition lifts. Let's say if my competition was 10 minutes on jerks with 32 kilogram kettlebells, I did not touch 32s until the competition day. So I specially ordered from my friend from Serbia, Aleksandar Miletić, to make 33 kilogram kettlebell because I didn't want to lift 32. And the 30s was a little bit too light, and 34s did too much damage on my body. So I just asked, okay, just give me 33, so then I'm not lifting 32s. And if I fail on 33s, I didn't fail on 32s, so we are still good with 32s. We're still friends. So this approach, for me, this approach worked the best. I tried a few, but this one was the best.
Nice, man, nice. No, that's really cool because it's kind of, the sort of story that you tell in your mind is, but it's not 32s, even though there's only like one kind of different, but it's not 32s though. But
it's not 32s, exactly.
No, I like that. I mean, it's something that I've spoke about it frequently. Like it's my biggest challenge, whether it's from putting too much pressure on myself and expecting too much of myself or what it may be, and it's a constant ongoing battle. It's always got to be there. The kettlebell is always a mental game. And I remember speaking to so many great coaches, and the first thing is like, why? It's just, that just hurts the brain even more, doesn't it? But it's always trying to find that, and I think sometimes it's quite easy in the beginning to take that for granted. That's probably the biggest thing that I thought, because like you say, in the beginning, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm doing reps, I'm setting personal bests, but you don't train your mind to handle.
Exactly.
So.
And too much mind training also, it burns you out, like emotionally you're burned, and then it's very hard to lift.
Yeah.
But if you know how to hold these emotions in you inside, like to prepare for competition, then for me, this worked. I mean, for some people, they need to test one day almost before competition. It's different, but for me, as long as I didn't lift 32s, it was nice.
No, I mean, well, I've seen so many different training, and I mean, I remember in Paris in the Grand Prix a few years back, and I just remember Ivan Denisov must have been at midnight. I must train before competition. It was like, it's midnight, and there he is in the hallway, and I'm just like, man, you are crazy guy. But that works for him. He feels like it gets him ready for his competition, and he's super focused. And then Anton is just kind of
he relaxes.
Whatever, it's really interesting to see that different approach.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned, Anton and Ivan, they're completely different personalities. Ivan is very loud. And he needs that. He needs the feedback of himself, how he feels. And for Anton, he knows he did the work, so it must work in competition. So he's relaxed, and it's completely different approaches. And the main thing I'm doing lately for last 8 months almost is neurotype training. How you train different types of athletes. Some people who are more like a dopamine dependent, they will need to go out every time, like Deniso. Some people which are more serotonin dependent, they just need to structure everything down, and they will just follow the plan. And then you have people like you and me, which are adrenaline dependent, which adrenaline really works, and you need kind of variety, so you keep your mind fresh. So you don't burn out even 5 or 4 weeks before competition. So you need variety. And this is the main thing why I came up with the conjugate system idea. It was before I knew that, but it worked very good for my type of personality.
Yeah.
And let's say I have a few athletes in my gym which are like PhD in chemistry or something like this, and they cannot follow the conjugate because it doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
For them, everything needs to make sense. Like it has to be, if yesterday was 10 reps, today has to be 12, not different exercise. What you're doing. So yeah, different approach for different people. This is how I test, and then I get to know people, like how they react to some kind of training, some kind of stimulus. It can be like a very neurological stimulus before competition, like before training, you can do heavy squats. But for some people, it's enough if they only see a training and it makes sense for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and for us, like you and me, it's adrenaline type. You can burn out, but if you have a nice approach and lots of variety, then you stay mentally fresh, which is important.
Yeah, no, that's. And how do you go about testing that then? What's your system for testing that?
Well, there are a few tests online. It's a Braverman's test. The other one test was just released by Christian Thibodeau, coach from Canada. He's well known. So he has a test on internet. But I think that if you know people just a little bit while you talk to them, how they walk, how they look, how they handshake, and then how they perform. I mean, I know you for like 5 years, so it was not very hard for you. And you're also the same type as I am. So it's very easy for me to figure you out. So it's not very hard. Let's say for Ivan, he's a dopamine type. He's always loud and And Anton Anasenko is relaxed guy. So it's kind of three basic types. How you put people according to training system.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I always laugh. There was that conversation we had in Paris when we were sat there after the competition. Everyone's tired, and Ivan was talking, and he was going, "Why has there only been 4 people to do more than 100 reps on long cycle? It's really easy." And everybody's just looking at each other, just kind of like, "It's not easy." It's not easy.
Yeah, but that's Ivan, you know.
I know.
He has to have comments like this, yeah.
Makes you feel even worse.
Yeah, exactly. Before competition, why are you so bad?
So just obviously, so on that we're talking about competitions. What's kind of been your best experience in kettlebell sport? Was it finally in the beginning when you sort of hit that master of sport after hitting that 3 years of training in the beginning, or was it kind of the turning point of going, actually, do you know what? I've hit master sport international class. What was the best experience you've ever had in kettlebell sport? Maybe it's in training or competition.
In competition, the best experience came when I announced that I'm not going to compete anymore, which I still don't. I mean, I went for a few local competitions just to support sport in Slovenia and Croatia, but I did not prepare for those competitions. And since this was in 2016 in May, I was third in IUKL competition. And this is when I announced that I finished my professional career. And after that, I went for like 4 competitions, I think. And this is when I started with the conjugate system, because before Anton was my coach, so I followed as much as I could. After that, I switched to conjugate, and I did 3 personal records when I switched to conjugate. And I was really, really enjoying the competitions. Before that, it was mentally hard for me. I know that I look focused on competition and that I'm really like self-confident and stuff, but inside I'm burning also like everybody else. I try to fall in the zone on platforms for those 10 minutes, but that burns me out for like a few days after or even more.
Yeah.
But when I switched to the conjugate, I did PR with 24s on jerk. I did PR with 32s in 5 minutes of jerk, and I did PR on long cycle in 10 minutes. And everything was without preparing for it. It was just doing the conjugate training, enter the platform and do however I felt. And it was mentally, it was easy, and my general physical preparation was higher. But I have to make a note that when I competed professionally, I was always 84 kilograms. And when I switched to conjugate, I did not worry about, and I was always about 92, 93. So I was like 7 kilos heavier, and maybe that's why PRs showed at those competitions.
Yeah, well, I remember that competition in Ireland when you finished third, and you were meant to be in the weight category above, and you had you have to come down and make weight, and it's like, right, I need to go in the sauna, and it was all of this additional stress and that additional motion. That was not actually, although it was great result for you, it was probably the worst.
This result took me to Master of Sports International class.
Yeah.
This is the only time I did it on competition, and the same day the Master of Sports International class numbers. And I think that all this stress which was around took the focus from the platform. So when I entered the platform, my mind was completely focused on the lift only, and I did not think about lifting a minute before.
Yeah.
And I think I don't really remember that set because I was really exhausted and dehydrated from the whole night, like sauna and spitting and running.
Yeah.
But I was so kind of pissed off, which kind of gave me a little bit more burst for the lifting. And mentally, I was not even there. I was just lifting, and I didn't do PR on jerk at that time, and I didn't do PR on snatch. But the total was just enough to do the Master Sports International class.
Yeah, because it wasn't just making weight, was it? Didn't your apartment get burgled twice or something like that? Your apartment got robbed or something?
Oh yeah. In the Airbnb, they broke into our house twice, and we had to move from a house to a hotel. Yeah, but everything that was going on around, I think it helped my performance on the competition, because really I had, I think, 7 or 8 athletes with me at the time, or maybe even more. So I had to take care of them. There were lots of girls in the team, and they were kind of scared when, you come back to the house and it was broken in, they stole some money. Yeah. So I had to take care of this also. And all this, the focus going on all over the place kind of, I think, helped me to save the emotions for my lifting, which my best result ever. Yeah.
We maybe won't recommend that to people though. Before competition, make sure you get robbed. And
then you change rooms and you lose 4 kilos overnight.
So on that now, obviously you've sort of retired from professional kettlebell lifting, and you haven't got the stress of the competitions and stuff. Are you still sort of trying to push? Have you still got quite a few guys coming from your gym, still wanting to compete and push themselves on the platform? Because what I've tended to find in kettlebell sport is, as soon as the coach kind of stops lifting and competing, sometimes you see the students, okay, well, coach isn't doing it, so I'm going to stop. And then sometimes clubs disappear overnight kind of things, What's been your experience with that?
Well, when I first announced, everybody was a little bit shocked. And then on the national championship the same year, there was like 40 or 50 people from Slovenia. And then for the nationals, I can still gather like 40 or 50 people to lift. But going on competition outside Slovenia, if I don't go, people won't go. Yeah. So it's the same experience. I'm kind of sad about that. But I cannot take all the weekends for competitions anymore, because I have I work in the Slovenian national handball team as a coach, as a strength and conditioning coach. I have a volleyball team, and I'm doing lots of education. I go for different certifications or stuff like this, and everything is over weekends. So those weekends which are off, I don't want to go on competition to watch people lift kettlebells. Yeah. I do this five days a week. I watch them, and then on competition they will just have to figure it out.
Definitely. It's really strange, that mentality though, isn't it? It's kind of it's always baffled me a little bit why guys will never sort of venture out if there's not one person. If one person doesn't go, it's kind of, okay, I'm not going to go. It's always been strange, and it's always been kind of sad for me. But it's something I've tried to instill in the guys in my team, is kind of, you're going to need to learn to lift if I'm not there, because I can't be at every competition. And this weekend they had like a small beginners competition, and still like 10 people went off their own back, and no head coaches were there. Si's on holiday, I was away teaching down in Leeds, so I couldn't attend. But just trying to instill and give people that confidence is a massive thing, because then it stops. Because obviously Slovenia had a really strong team, some fantastic lifters, obviously Tida and all the other guys that you had. And it's sad not to see them on the world stage,
Yeah, well, I think that going on world stage on IOKL, one thing is really expensive. First, you have to take a few days off the school or job or whatever you work. Yeah. Then you have to travel, the planes and hotels. That's not the cheapest thing. Then, you know, when you come to the IUKL competition, first you have to pay upfront, then you have to pay another time, and then you have to pay something else which you don't really understand because it's written in Cyrillics.
Yeah.
So people were like, you go once, you go second time, but the third time you just say, I mean, that's, you lift kettlebells, you don't get paid for that. And then we just kind of started to go to smaller competition where it's kind of a little bit better energy among athletes. They're not the best quality, of course, there's no Russians there. But for people who are lifting 24s, if you see the Niso or if you see Anasenko once, I think that's enough. You don't have to go to every competition he attends. So that's why people are staying at home. They go to competitions where you can sit in a car in the morning, even if it's 5 o'clock in the morning, drive for 2 hours, and come back in the evening. So this is why I think the sport on this level did a little bit step back, but
no, that's it. And what do you think the kind of the future of kettlebell sport is, if that's kind of the approach or what may happen? And to be fair, history kind of suggests that's kind of what does happen. And what do you sort of see as the future of kettlebell sport in terms of big international competitions? Do you see the excitement to get there, or do you think a few people will probably experience it and then tail off? Or
well, the biggest issue of kettlebell sport outside Russia is that it's people's, like, athletes' second or third career. And if you have your second or third career, you're above 30.
Yeah.
So this is one problem. You know, if you want to talk about sport and develop it, we should start with athletes which are like 16, 17. To be honest, I would use kettlebell sport for young athletes like once or maybe twice a week. And I would let them play with ball and do lots of other stuff. Unless they really decide they will be professional athletes, which in Slovenia is not possible. I mean, you can lift kettlebells, but you have to pay the coach, you have to pay for the time for the gym. So that's not really professional. It's only like you feel better because you say you're professional.
It's an excitable hobby.
It's an excitable, exactly. So this is one problem of a sport. And if I look at my gym, it's 10 years from the clients. I was asking my athletes, well, why don't we go to the competitions anymore? But when we started, we were like 24, 25, and we are now 35. And we have kids and we have, you know, obligations we didn't have when 10 years ago. So what will happen with sport? I don't know. In Slovenia, we have now two clubs which are working very well. And I see that in other countries also, sport is developing. I can see more people lifting. So it's at the moment it's hard to say. I think there is too many organizations. That's the main issue. Too many possibilities to go to. Too many options to lift, you know, the time-wise and the weight-wise. I think in Europe, if we want to do the sport to the higher level and get more people, we should limit the weight to 24, maybe to 28 kilograms. Because to be honest, how many people can really work with 32s? It's enjoyable to watch. I mean, I know I have a few people who can stand under kettlebells for 10 minutes and do like 50, 60 reps. But you want to see some movement, you want to see some motion, and you want to see some battle. If you come to competition and you have like 7 athletes in front of you, you want to see close results, something going on. And on 32s, it's not going to happen in Europe, never. Even in the United States, they have like 2, maybe 3 athletes who can lift 32s on a very high level. And then you look one step further back, there's nobody who can even survive with a decent pace. So I think if we limit the weight on 24 kilograms, that would make a bigger competition. Not everybody, of course, would win medal, but you know, if you check the marathon, you have like 1,000 people running and only first 3 get a medal. Nobody's complaining. Nobody's complaining. You get a tap on the shoulder, you survived. And with kettlebells, I've experienced that if people come to competition and they don't get medals, they're like, what? Where's my medal? I mean, lift first and then expect. So this is my opinion, but I think this should be the first step toward like promoting the sport and to be more like a sport again, not just going for the rank, not just going for the number or for the medal, but the sport becomes sport when you have an opponent who is close to you, somebody who is pushing you, not the number you have on the rank system, but somebody standing next to you. And this is how both of you will do better results as an athlete.
It's really interesting that obviously to be fair, I've never even thought of that way in terms of reducing the weight and stuff like that. I think it's probably just ingrained into me, like it has to be 32 because it's always been 32 kind of thing, you know. No, because it was one thing that I was sort of thinking about was kind of similar to like triathlon in track and field and stuff, kind of jerk only, snatch only, long cycle only, then triathlon. So you've got the guys who are jerk specialists who can just focus on that. You've got guys who can focus on just snatch. You've got guys who can focus on long cycle, and guys who have to do all three, because you've lifted all three in one day. It's very, very tough, but that's a true all-round athlete, you know. And that was the kind of the way that I was thinking. That'd be really cool to see that progression up, but reduce the categories and all sorts of different things. But yeah, I think if you look at any competition you've always been into, when you stood next to somebody and it's like neck and neck for rep and the crowd is going crazy and it just makes it more spectator friendly.
Yeah, that's how winning is done. I mean, that's how you will progress. Because if I enter competition still in Slovenia and Croatia, if I take 32s, I think I can probably do the best number, but there's nobody behind me. So why would I train? Why? You know, I did all the numbers, but they're like 3 or 4 years ago, not now. If somebody would come close to me, I would have to work harder in training and of course in competition also. So there would be more personal records. It would be like a head-to-head battle. When we did the coefficient with the EGSA, there was a guy from Croatia who was always challenging me. So I knew I was a little bit heavier, so I need to do more reps, and we didn't know how much we have to do. So on every competition, we went all out. So this is how we did personal record and train, because it was a battle between me and him all the time. And it was same with Taida. She always picked somebody she wanted to beat. You know, if you have somebody you want to beat, not just the number on the paper, then I think you work harder to get it.
Yeah, I think because you can only everybody says, oh, the good thing about kettlebell sport is you're competing against yourself, but you know yourself that only goes so far, doesn't it? You know,
exactly.
It's kind of like, well, if I don't beat myself today, then so what? You know. You know, and I think I asked Anton. I mean, you probably saw the results from the Russian national championships last year, and I said to Anton, like, these results are crazy. Like, how are they doing it? He was just like, the competition was just so fierce. And from platform 1 to 7 or 8 platforms they had, can't remember now, but literally like the difference was 6 reps across all the platforms, and you just like, it forced those guys to go to a completely different level and really push. And it'd be really cool to see that hopefully in the future and the way it drives. But it's amazing how just changing that focus and having somebody to compete against brings the best out of you, you know?
Yeah. If you remember, like 7 or 8 years ago, Ksenia Dedyukhina, she had the best result in snatch, which was like, I think, 176. And nobody could come close. And then she made 193, and all the girls did 180. And then Ksenia did 202, and I think now there's like 6 women who can do over 200. So you just need somebody next to you or somebody to push the limit, and then you know you can do it. I don't think that's for Europeans, that's that compared to Russian, it doesn't make sense, because Russian, they start very young, and there's a lots of athletes doing it. So the genetically gifted with very good coaches and competition inside the gym. So this is how they come to those results. And in Europe, we don't have that. So they have the advantage of this.
Yeah, I remember there's obviously talking about, there's some books out there, Peak Performance and some of the stuff by Anders Ericsson and stuff like that, and Goldmine Effect. And it's kind of, they talk about how important the environment is, and that's why generally the younger sibling tends to be the better one out, because they've spent all of their life trying to beat the older brother or and working twice as hard. But if you look at the athletes in St. Petersburg in Euro Fitness, you know, Ivan Markov is compared to Kostov and all of those guys, is relatively new to the sport, but his result is the absolute best in the world in competition, you know. And
yeah, but then again, you get one athlete, one in a million. He's born with wide hips,
yeah,
huge legs, and aerobic capacity, you know. And then they just needed to show him how to do it, and we need to be like we need to know that he has one of the best coaches in the world, Sergei Rachinsky.
yeah.
So the technique-wise and protocol-wise, Sergei is of course one of the best. And with an athlete like this, it's probably just a pleasure to work. He's a hard worker. He's young, you know. When you're 22, you recover a little bit faster than when you're 32, and so on.
No, yeah, I'm starting to feel that one now.
yeah, but for Markov, that's a perfect combination. You know, the environment, the coach, and the genetics, and that's it.
Yeah, because if you think of his training partners, one day it's Kichmaev or then Kostov, Benitez, all of these great guys are just counting him and learning. And when he first started in the sport, you kind of, if you're just watching greatness, that just becomes normal for you. Whereas we see that once every 2 years at a seminar and stuff like that. So it's not ingrained into our mind as much.
Exactly.
No, mate, I've taken up so much of your time and stuff like that. It's been absolutely cracking chat. But for anybody who's training now or just about thinking about getting to the sport, what would be kind of your top 5 tips for anybody within kettlebell lifting and stuff now? What would be your go-to tips for them?
Well, the first one would be get a coach. Get a coach on hand, not online, on hand. Because I think, especially in Europe, but also in the United States, there are lots of athletes now who know how to lift. So don't turn on YouTube and ask somebody to talk you through. I don't think that's very hard to find a coach now. Of course, you have to check the coach. I mean, if he has good results or good athletes, I think it's good enough for perfect. So that's number 1. Number 2, follow the coach's instructions.
Who knew?
Find the coach. Yeah, then follow the coach's instructions. Don't be impatient. I mean, I know that some people who come to my gym, they come from a very good background of general physical preparation. And I say, okay, we'll start with 16s, and they watch like, how, why? It's like, just trust me on these ones for a few weeks, then you can lift a little bit heavier. So don't be impatient. Surround yourself with a greatness, like you said. If there's a possibility, like watch all the YouTube, all the channels, all the competitions, study the sport. You know, you have to study the sport. You have to understand. You try to enter the mind of a champion. That's a really good experience if you can. Then at some point you have to travel to Russia. You just have to travel to Russia. You have to experience this. And then the last one, give something back to the sport. That's because if you train hard and if you claim your kettlebell lifter, then you have to give something back. I mean, you have to enter the competition. You have to bring somebody up. You have to promote sport. So you have to give it back. In my case, kettlebell lifting gave a lot to me. Many things. I mean, I became a little bit more known. I entered the lots of championship. I've traveled all around the world, met people, and this is why I never will go away from the kettlebells. Even if I don't step on the platform ever again, I will always be there to support and teach and coach. So that's the rule. Like from Arnold Schwarzenegger, give something back. You have to. It's important.
Yeah, mate, that's absolutely awesome. And for somebody who we've known each other for quite a few years now, and just want to say sort of thank you for everything you contribute. And I know, if you want to check out some of the EGSA stuff, there's some great templates and some great coaching that Gregor puts out there. I'd really recommend going to check out that. And I'm sure if you need to ask him any questions, you can reach out to him. He's got a whole host of knowledge, and you will be bamboozled at some point. But I think that's one thing that I've always admired about yourself is, and it's something you put on me quite at an early stage in my lifting career, was never stop learning. So even when we met in Leeds and when we went to the competition in Croatia and stuff, it was kind of like, oh, I'm going to go and make sure I learn from this, and I learn from. It doesn't have to be kettlebell sport related. It can be learning from so many different things, you know. And so I just want to say personally, thanks for giving that and opening my eyes to just continuous learning for when it comes to kettlebell sport lifting, man, you know.
Yeah, thank you for nice words. Thank you for following advices, and thank you for inviting me for this. It was nice. Pleasure always to talk about kettlebell sports, especially to nice guys.
Oh, nice one, mate. It was all my pleasure. I'm sure the guys will love it. But until next time, mate, I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
For sure.
Cheers, man.